Hi and welcome to my channel. My name's Teresa and I'm the car boat crafter, and I've got another project for you today using laminate and 12 by 12 papers, and if you can get hold of them, some little notebooks as well. So back in the day I made this, there's a particular name for this type of notebook and I can't remember what it is, but it's one of those that you make a cover and then you add in little note pages or signatures, similar to what you do when you're doing a journal, but this is just for notebooks using bought notebooks. And I'd made them for a specific, this one for a specific size, but then couldn't get hold of this size, or or they were expensive for what they were, because sometimes people want quite a lot of money for even just the smallest notebooks, don't they? But I was in Acorns, my local charity shop, recently, having a mooch, as you do, and I saw they had a stack of these little notebooks in all different covers, and some of them, like this one, are lined, some of them are dotty, and then some of them, I don't know whether this one is, no, not that one, that one's dotty as well. Some of them have got like the graph paper you had for maths. So I picked up 4 and a 4 extra for in the future, and filled up my little laminate folder, my little laminate cover. And of course, when I went to work, a couple of the girls were like, "Oh, what have you made now?" Had a look, and I've asked if I could make them one. So I've got a little production line going, but thought I'll pop the camera on and show you how I make this from start to finish. And if I do it in a way that you can use whatever size notebook you've got. So I've picked up some more little notebooks, and let's use this one as a for my measurements. Oh yeah, that one's a dotty one. So you'll need a piece of laminate, and I've got an A4 laminate sheet, and I'm using 12 by 12 papers. You can of course use regular A4 paper, but I'm using a 12 by 12 sheet, which I've cut down. It is double-sided. Absolutely love that side. Isn't it gorgeous? It is double-sided, so there's going to be interest on the inside as well as the outside. So the first thing I've done is taken measurements of my books, and I'm going to use 4 of them for each one, but you can use 2 or 3, entirely up to you. You could probably make a bigger one, a thicker one, if you wanted to as well, depending on the size of your books. So these ones are 6 inches by 4 1/4. So what I've done is I've taken my 12 by 12 and I've cut it at 6.5 inches, so that when my book is inside the laminate cover, I've got about 1/4 inch either side. There'll be slightly more than that because the laminate as well will increase that a little bit. So I've gone to 6.5 so that my book sits nicely inside. Because this is A4, 12 by 12 is too big for it, so I've chopped it off at 11.5 inches. So for this book, for these books, because they're 6 inches, I've gone to 6.5 by 11.5. And I also, with this one, with all of them, I like the little wraparound bits there as well, just to keep my notebooks clean and tidy. So if you don't want that little wraparound bit, you could cut it off. Let me have a measure of it for you. You could cut it, well, I don't need to measure, do I? Because it's going to be about your notebook. So what you'll do is you'll measure this twice. So this is 4 1/4. So 4 1/4 twice is 8.5, plus another 8, plus another 1/2 inch for the gusset, for this bit here, 1/2 inch. So 8.5 plus 1/2 inch is 9. So if I don't want the wraparound bit, I don't want this extra bit here, then I would cut it off at 9 inches. So I'd cut it off here. But because I do want it, I've cut it at 11.5. And the reason I cut it 11.5 is not because of the size of the books, it's because of the size of the laminate. Okay, I hope that's yeah, worked out. So this is waste, but I'm going to keep this because I'm going to use this to make a pocket as well. So let's put my laminate out of the way. And that little 1/2 inch strip I don't need. Okay, and I'm going to bring in my scoring board. Now, I want to make sure, because that I score it at the right place. I don't want to be scoring it the wrong way round, otherwise things are going to have to be upside down, or I'm going to have to start all over again. So what I tend to do is pop my book in, give it a wrap round, just as and then that's going to come in as well, just so as I know that when I place it on my scoreboard, that I've got this part at this end. And then what I do is, so it's in my scoreboard, and I'll bring my notebook right up into this corner so that I know. So there's my notebook, 4 1/4, just slightly over. And I'm going to give it a little bit of space. So I'm going to go to 1/2 inch. So I'm scoring this at 4 1/2. So remember, the notebook was 4 1/4. So that's there. I've given it another 1/4 inch. But if you're not into measuring, then just bring your notebook in and then go to the next one along. So I've scored it at 4 1/2. I want my gusset to be 1/2 inch, so I'm going to score it again as well at 5. So 4 1/2 and 5 gives me the gusset. I'm also going to score it between that 4 1/2 and 5. So I'm going to score it at 4 3/4. Just so that when I come to use my booklet, my cover, I've got a little bit of a rounding going on. This is a bit battered now, I've had it for a long time. So it just rounds over, and I'll do the same this end. So I've scored at 4 1/2, 4 3/4 and 5. So I've scored in that 1/2 inch. Then I'll bring my book in again, pop it up against that last score mark that I've made, and then come to this end and then go 1/4 inch more. So that's 9 1/2. So I'm scoring at 9 1/2. And again, I want, because I'm doing the wraparound, if you cut it shorter, then you don't need to do this bit. But because I'm having the wraparound, I want to score this gusset here as well. So that's another 1/2 inch. So I've scored at 9 1/2. So 9 1/2 and 1/2 inch is 10. So score at 10. Then score in the middle, which is 9 3/4. I hope this is making sense. You can score all the way along if you want, but I just tend to score at the first one past my book, a 1/2 inch, and then halfway in the middle. So I can pop my book to one side so it's out the way. And I use the book just so I'm not having to do lots of maths. So when I bring it in, I'm not having to think, well, my book is 4 1/4, so let's give it, and then think, and then I've added 1/2 inch, so I'm having to then think, well, that was at 5, so I've now got to add the width of my book and do the, you know, all of that nonsense. If you're not brilliant at maths, which some days I am, some days I'm not, but there you go. So I've got all my score lines in. Just reinforce those a little bit more, and then I can put my score board away for a minute. So those are done, but the next thing I want to do is, and this is again purely optional, is I'm going to corner round all of those, and if you want to, you can leave them with the corner like that if you prefer, but I quite like the corners rounded. I think it just finishes it off a little bit. Okay, so that's all cornered round. So next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to bring in my laminate pouch, and what I do is check which end opens up, because I'm right-handed, so that's the opening end. I'm going to switch it round, and what I do is I use my mat, so I'm going to line up this edge of my laminate along one of my grid lines like that, and then I'm going to pull in my and this is the thing as well, let me explain. That is going to be the outside, this is going to be the inside, which is why I did the scoring the way I did. If this was going to be the outside, then I'd have wrapped it differently. That would have been the front. Hope that makes sense. Anyway, if you've got any questions, pop them in the comments below. So I've got that all lined up on that line, that grid line there. So I'm just holding it steady with one hand, and I'm going to pop in this with the other. And what I'm going to do now is that shifted ever so slightly, and I'm just going to line that up with one of the other grid lines so that it's in straight, because what I'm going to do when I've finished is cut off all the excess, and what I don't want to do is to have it on the wonk like that, then put it in my trimmer and I can't get a straight line. So if I line it all up on my, let's hold that steady, line this all up on my grid lines, then that should work nicely. And because I've cut this to 11.5 rather than 11 3/4, I've got that extra little bit there as well. So line that up nice and straight, pop your laminate over, and I always hold the end, so this is the joined end, so I hold the joined end and then just smooth it across like that to try and get out any air bubbles before we go through the laminator. So isn't that paper pretty? So let's move that down, and with laminating, when you put it through the laminator, you want the joined end to go in first. Let's move that out of the way. You want your joined end to go in first, because if you put this end in, it can buckle the paper up. So just be aware of that. Right, I'm bringing my laminator over. Should be nice and warm now. Just check. My light isn't quite on yet, so let's give that a minute. And what you want to do is, when it goes through the laminator, hold it steady, and you'll see that you've got a little gap. That's where you put your paper in. Try and make sure that you've got a little bit even gaps either side of your papers. So if I put that down, that light has just come on. So as I said, this end has to go through first, and as you line it up by eye, make sure that the gaps either end are about even, so that it goes through the middle, and then just push it until it catches, and hold it very steady as it goes through, because what you don't want again is to put this through on the wonk and then you end up with the sides getting all creased and matted. Doesn't and all your hard work so far has gone to waste. So as it comes out, you lose this opaqueness because the glue has melted onto your paper or onto the other side of the laminate pouch, so it goes opaque, so you know it's nice and hot. If it comes out and it's still opaque, you can still got that sort of misty look on it, then you know that your laminator's not hot enough. You can try going through again, but sometimes that can cause it to buckle, so it may be that you've wasted your papers and your laminate pouch, but it's worth giving it a go. Okay, nearly through. and it gets to a point where you can just bring it out. Not quite there yet. There we go, bring it out. I'm going to turn that off. I'll turn it back on to do the rest of them, but I'll turn it off for now. So grab your bone folder, and I always go round just to make sure that the glue has grabbed right up to the edge of my card. So I just run it down the edge of the card, and that's quite easy to do because it's slightly raised because it's inside the laminate pouch. What you can do, and what I probably will do when I'm doing it for myself, is I'll probably put, so I've got quite a bit either side, which now when I chop it down will be wasted, but what I usually do is line it up a bit further up, and if I've got anything that can go through, it will go through on what would be the waste, so it's not wasted. So sometimes I've got little cards or little bits that can go on there. So let's bring in my guillotine again, but it doesn't have to be a guillotine. A trimmer works just as well. And I'm going to pop it in, and what I do is I chop it to, let me show you first. I chop it so that I've got far too much on there. Don't know whether you're going to be able to see that. So that's far too much, but it gives me a by eye, so I'm not cutting too close. That's the last thing I want, is to cut right on that edge and break that seal. So now I've got about just over 1/4 inch. So I'm going to go back in and go again, and then this then gives me a nice small little border there. I'm going to do exactly the same on this end. In fact, I'm going to flip it over because this is the join end. So again, I'm coming in, cut too much, so I've still got a nice big chunky bit on there, which is far too much for what I want. So I'm coming back in, and this just helps me to by eye things a little bit easier. So now I've got a nice small little compact join there, just enough. There's a couple of mils there, just enough to hold it all together. So I'm going to chop this end off as well, doing exactly the same. So bring that down, and then come back in and do it again. Just very carefully. There we go. So now I've got a nice small edge all the way around my cover. So I can pop those away, and you can use these as laminate, as you would with any laminate. So sometimes I will cut these down and use them in 3D cards, or pop a butterfly on and use them in spring up cards, things like that. So it can be very useful. Don't waste them if you can help it. So that's all that done. So I'm going to bring back my scoreboard and pop this down. Now, if you remember the measurements last time, we measured, so it needs to be that way around. I can just see where I scored on there. So I'm going to pop it in. Now, if I pop it in as I would normally and buff it up to there, then these are going to be out by however much is here. So I'm going to lift it up ever so slightly and line up the papers rather than try and measure it like that, and then go back to my 4.5 and reinforce that. If you don't want to do this step, then you probably can still score them, or fold them should I say, but I do like to come back in and just reinforce all of those score lines on there, and then come up here and again This was 9.5, 9 3/4 and 10. Just helps when you're folding a little bit later on. Okay, so that's that. I can pop this down. And then what I do is I go to the first score line. So this was my 4.5 score line, and I'm just going to fold it over, and it will fold really easily if you've reinforced it twice. It might be a little bit more difficult if you've only scored it at the paper stage, so just be a little bit more careful. Or you could just go straight to the stage after you've laminated, because sometimes it can the scoring can work just as well then. So I miss the half one and go straight to the end one. So that would be the 5-inch one, and then reinforce that as well using my bone folder. And then I'll just pinch the one in the middle, pinch the 4 3/4 one, and just finger fold it. I don't want to reinforce it. Because although I want it to round, I don't want it to be too much. I don't want it to be as rounded so that it holds like that. I want it to just curve. And then I'm going to come back and do the same with the score lines at this end. So this was the 9.5 and 10-inch lines. Oops. And then again, just finger fold the one in the middle. Oops. Which I can do like that. And it just makes it a little bit more springy. Okay, so that's my cover almost finished. So what we want now is to, oh, there's a couple more steps, and I nearly forgot the next one. So nearly forgot. So these are, because I've trimmed it, these are quite, oh, you can't see, can you? That's the problem. These are pointed and my paper's rounded, so I'm going to come back in with my corner rounder, the same one as I used there, and I'm corner rounding the laminate. Sometimes with this one it kind of only does half of it, so I can just squeeze it off, or you can come back in with a pair of scissors and corner round it with scissors if your corner rounder, like mine, doesn't play ball brilliantly. So there we go. It's cutting one half of it and not the other half. Might have to bring out the big guns, which is the oh, there we go. Just clip it a couple of times and that's worked. So, oh, there you go. Right, so that's my corners all corner rounded. Now what I want to do is to thread inside this so that my notebooks have got somewhere to hold on to hold them in there. And what I've done is, for this size, because it's 6 inches, I've got 42 inches worth of this elastic, which, although it's no longer with us, I will tell you where I got it from. It's from Wilkinson's. They've closed down now, but this was in their Christmas range, and when they closed, I picked up about half a dozen of these because I do like to make these kind of projects. And I've got gold and red. I think I've got a silver one or two, so I've got a few of them. But you can find them in other places, so, and it doesn't have to be the metallic ones like I'm using, it's just that these are the ones I've got. So the next thing I'm going to do is to put some holes in here so that I can fit in, thread through my elastic. So what I need is, I need 2 holes here, 2 holes at the bottom, and if you want a wraparound one like I've got there, you'll need one in the middle as well. Okay, So you can use your crocodile, you can use a pokey tool, whatever works for you. But I've also got a click it, which I use for the middle one because my crocodile doesn't get down there, unfortunately. So I'm going to bring this out. It is a bit noisy, I am afraid, and I haven't used it for ages, so I just hope it's all there. Yeah, there it is. So I'm going to use my click it. So, but before I do that, I'm going to do the 2 holes top and bottom using my crocodile. Now, use whichever side you prefer. I'm going to use the smaller one, and I've also tightened it up so that all of my all of my holes are roughly, well, they will be the same depth. So I'm just going to come in, I'm going to do 1. So I've got, because I've got my 3 score lines, I've got 2 panels there, so I'm going to put 1 in either side. So I'm going to bring that in. I've set this at trying to think, so that's 1 2 3 4 5 6 notches from that end, if that helps. I have no idea what that measurement might be. So I'm bringing that in, and there we go, and then I'm coming across this side and squeezing, and then I've got 2 holes, 1 in each. So there's my crease, there's my 2 creases, and I've got a crease down the middle, so I've got 1 either side of that. Turn it round and do exactly the same, and because I've used the notch, I can decide, well, it stops me going too far into it. So there's 1 and there's the other. So as you can see, they're both at the same, they're set at the same level. So that works. I think that works really well. And I want 1 roughly in the middle, so I'm just going to use my click it to do that, and I'm trying to find one that's about the same size as those. That's slightly smaller. Slightly bigger one. Is that one better? Yeah, I think that's a better size. So that's, it's all magnets on this. This is the first one I bought before I bought my crocodile. So, which is, I mean, it's great. I do like the crocodile though, because you haven't got all this fuss about bringing everything out and having to line everything up. But this is great when you've got something that's a bit landlocked. So crocodile's great for edges, but unless you've got the big one, which I haven't, and I don't. I haven't seen any second hand that I could get to. So this one is going to work for me. So this goes in the middle. So halfway between there and halfway between that that gusset. So pop that on, and this, oh, hopefully that wasn't too loud for you. I do want to make sure that I clear that out as well. I don't want to put it back and it become, I can't. So it's great because you get these little things to help clear it out. What I will do is I will pop everything there and I will put it all back and away after I've finished, because I will be using it for the rest of these little note things. So I'm going to start with the ones that are going to hold the notebook in. So I start on the inside. This is the way I do it. I start on the inside, go through. Now you can use, if you've got what do you call it, a darning needle or one of those plastic needles, you can use those. Pull that through and leave yourself about half the width of, well, just over half the length of your notebook. So just about that much. So there's my halfway mark, And I've left a couple more inches there. That's going to help me later when I'm doing my knots. So I'll hold that down, and then I'm not going to go down here, I'm going to go across here. This is going to save me a lot of elastic, because if I went all the way down there and then back again, then I'm going to be using a lot of elastic. So I've gone back in at the top, flip it back, and now I'm going to go to the bottom. I go through at the bottom. Let's pull that. And then flip it back over, and I'm going to go through in the hole next to it. Like that. Pull it. Now don't pull it too tight at this stage, but you do want to make sure that you've not got too much slack going on. Bring it back up, and you're going to go back through this hole here. Well, it depends. I'm going to put 4 notebooks into this, but if you only wanted to put 2 in, then you can tie it off now, and then that just gives you those 2 loops there. Let me move that all out the way so you can see. So that would then give you those 2 strings there, and you can put 2 notebooks in. If you want, like me, 4, then carry on going. So I'm going to pull this out of the way, because these are only little holes, and I'm going to go back through that hole, the first hole I went through. So, and I'm just going to retrace my path exactly as I've just done it. So back through that hole and pull it like that. So again, now I've got those 2, and I'm going to make sure that they are tight. Well, not too tight. You don't want to be too tight, but they're not slack. Yeah, just like that. So I flip it over. That's where I've just come out. And I'm going to go back into that hole there, like that. This would be much easier if I had a darning needle on it, but of course I can't find mine. So, and I did promise these to the ladies by next week, so there we go, that's gone through. So pull that down again. So now you've got the 2 there, and if you want you can straighten it out and have it nice and neat. Then flip it over, and we're back up there. So we're going to go straight to the bottom again. Move that out the way, push it through that little hole. And again, depending on the thickness or how wide your elastic is, if you're using anything wider than this, you'd need a wider hole for it. But this is just a nice size for that, the smaller hole on the crocodile. So I've gone through, so again I'm going to flip it over, and again I'm going back through that hole, retracing my steps. Just hold them all out of the way so I can push it through. Starting to fray a little bit, so it's not so easy to push through as it was, but there we go. Pull that through. Whoops. And then we're back here, so this is where I'm going to knot it. So pull it nice and tight, not too tight, because you want to be able to, you don't want it so tight that it pulls your notebook to bend like that, but you do want it tight enough that your notebooks are not falling out. So I'm going to pull this a little bit tighter, because then I can loosen the others as well. So, and just a regular box knot on here. Oops. Let's do that again. Regular box knot. And of course, because the camera's rolling, I can do anything except for a regular box knot. Right, so let's push that through and pull that tight. There we go. Pull that nice and tight. I've got my scissors. I'm going to cut that. Now, what I normally do, and I haven't got a lighter up here, but I will do before I gift it, is that I'm going to leave a little bit of a tail on there for now, but I would normally come back in and cut this much shorter, but then I would use my lighter just to melt the ends of that so that it doesn't unravel. But I haven't got my lighter with me. Keep this bit because we'll be using that in a minute. So these now are perfect for popping in our little notebooks. So let me show you how you do that. So you just open to the middle, to your staples or whatever, and then you just hook them under there, slide it in, and that's how they fit in. But before we fit all of them, I've got this little bit of elastic left. And what I want to do is to do my little wraparound bit. So I've got this bit. So the easiest way of doing it is, and if you've got an extra bit of thread, you can do it quite simply, but is to go from the outside in. So push your, might do it one at a time actually. Push your one end in, so it's in the middle, and hold it, and then come back in with the other one and push that in as well. So you've got both of them through like that. I'm just going to hook that over so I don't put it all the way through. Right, so let's line those up, and I'm going to put a knot on there. But before I do that, I want to double check that it will go round. So I'm going to bring those over like that. Check what length I need on this. So let's bring that down a little bit and check if that's enough. Yep, that should be perfect. So let's bring that back out. And one of the things I did before was I thought I was being clever, and I tied it around one of my elastics, one of these. So I had it like that, so that both were either side. Oops, both were either side, and I knotted it there. And yes, that worked brilliantly for pulling this back out, but I couldn't then use this elastic for a notebook. So make sure that you knot this so it's free of those four elastics. So I'm going to put it up a little bit more because I want my knot to be about there. And I'm just going to do a simple knot. Bring that round. There we go. And that's about where I want it to be. I'm going to pull that tight, and then before I do anything else, I'm going to double check that that will go round like that, which it will. So again, I would normally cut this quite low there, and then bring my lighter in and just melt the ends. I'm going to cut it there, and I'll come back in and do that later. But to finish off, these are my notebooks, and all they do is hook 1, 2, get another 2, and then I've got some on the inside as well. Always go to the middle because that's the strongest point for this. Bring up your elastic and just thread it through like that, till it gets to the middle, and then fold it over. And last one, again, find your middle and thread that through like that. There we go. So there's one done. So let me show you. That goes round like that. Open it, and then you've got one notebook, two notebooks, three notebooks, and four. And if you've got notebooks that haven't got pretty covers like this, then what you can do is just take the notebooks off, undo, let's find them, undo those staples in there, take the cover off, and then use your discarded the waste, or any waste, or another piece of card, whatever you want, and then use that to wrap around and create your new covers for your notebooks. As simple as that. You can also, I just grab hold of it, this is one I made earlier, but I've made a bit of a mistake because I scored it in the wrong place. You can also put little pockets in if you want to as well. And if you want me to, I can show you how to put a pocket in. I'll do it as a supplementary, and I'll leave a link at the end of this video for you to click on, just so you can see how to make a little pocket. And it's easier than just getting another piece of card and gluing it on the inside. So, but I really like these. I've always liked them. I hope that the ladies, oh, that's an extra one that shouldn't be in there. I hope that the ladies like them when I've finished. And the thing is, with the laminate, you could personalize them, put letters on the front here so that they've got the name of the person. You can, like I said with the other one, you can put little pockets in front or back, whichever works for you. And then they're a really nice gift to give to people. And I have made some for my daughters a few years ago, and then when I find the right size notebooks, I save them and give them to them. Anyway, I hope you enjoyed that. I hope you'll have a go at them. These were big a few years ago, but I haven't seen anyone doing them lately, so I just thought it'd be fun to reintroduce them. And as I said, because this is laminate, you can use them for years and years. And I know some people don't like to use things like laminate, but you can make this without laminating if you want to. Anyway, I've got another 4 of these to make, one of which I will show you how to make the pocket on your little notebook if you want to. But I will see you in the next video. Take care. Don't forget to click on the link and see how to make the pockets, and I'll see you soon. Take care. Bye for now.